So I will read today from the book of Mark, chapter 5. Jesus heals the Gerasene demoniac. They came to the other side of the sea, to the country of the Gerasenes, and when he had stepped out of the boat, immediately a man out of the tombs with an unclean spirit met him. He lived among the tombs, and no one could restrain him any more, even with a chain. For he had often been restrained with shackles and chains, but the chains he wrenched apart, and the shackles he broke in pieces, and no one had the strength to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and on the mountains he was always howling and bruising himself with stones. When he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and bowed down before him, and he shouted at the top of his voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I adjure you by God, do not torment me." For he had said to him, "Come out of the man, you unclean spirit." Then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" He replied, "My name is Legion, for we are many." He begged him earnestly not to send them out of the country. Now there on the hillside a great herd of swine was feeding, and the unclean spirits begged him, "Send us into the swine, let us enter them." So he gave them permission. And the unclean spirits came out and entered the swine, and the herd, numbering about 2,000, rushed down the steep bank into the sea and were drowned in the sea. The swineherds ran off and told it in the city and in the country. Then people came to see what it was that had happened. They came to Jesus and saw the demoniac sitting there, clothed and in his right mind, the very man who had had the legion, and they were afraid. Those who had seen what had happened to the demoniac and to the swine reported it. Then they began to beg Jesus to leave their neighborhood. As he was getting into the boat, the man who had been possessed by demons begged him that he might be with him. But Jesus refused and said to him, "Go home to your friends and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and what mercy he has shown you." And he went away and began to proclaim in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and everyone was amazed. So, demons and pigs. Been thinking a lot about demons and pigs, looking for the lesson, the good news in this bizarre story. Jesus casting out demons happens pretty often in the Gospels, actually, but this story is different because this story has pigs. I've always been interested in demons. From the time I could read, I went to the scary stories section of the library every time I visited. I loved stories about ghosts and witches and demons, not because I wasn't scared of them, but because I was, and I loved that feeling. I still love ghost stories, and when I go to see horror movies, I need a friend to hold on to because I get so scared. But this demon story is not your typical scary story. This one is scary in different ways. First of all, we have a man. They call him a demoniac because he is possessed by demons. This possession means that he is incapable of fitting in with society. He doesn't wear clothes. He lives in the cemetery, away from family and friends. He sometimes needs to be shackled because he's so dangerous to himself and others. The demons in this man are scary not because they are supernatural, but because they have taken over his life to the point where he can't function. This is, unfortunately, not a rare situation. Every day in cities, large and small, you can see many people whose demons have taken over. Untreated mental illness and addiction, and often the two combined, cause many of our neighbors to be in the same state as the man in this story, harmful to themselves, unable to function in society, lost and alone. But in our story, Jesus arrives on the scene. He comes to Gerasene, a Gentile town where the local economy depends on raising pigs, which are, of course, unclean animals according to Jewish law. And he meets this man and proceeds to talk to his demons. The demons recognize Jesus right away, and they are afraid of him. He asks their name, and they say Legion, which tells us there are many of them, but also reminds us of the Roman legion, a violent symbol of the oppressive empire at the time. There is an army inside this man that is destroying his life, yet that army is afraid of Jesus. Now, the concept of demons and their like were common across many cultures in the ancient world. One source I read said that lesser powers were thought to obey greater powers. So the fact that Jesus was able to command power over these demons symbolized his great power. especially because these were Gentile demons, if you will. If they had a master, it wasn't Jewish, and yet Jesus' power was greater. This, I think, is one of the lessons in this story that might have been more obvious to ancient listeners than to us. We don't spend much time thinking about demonic hierarchy nowadays, but when the Gospels were written, it was common knowledge. And the idea of Jesus commanding someone else's demons would have signified a power and divinity that was impressive to those who heard this story. So this army of demons is afraid of Jesus. They don't want him to order them back into the abyss, something they wouldn't be afraid of unless they thought he could actually do it. Instead, they beg to be moved into a herd of pigs nearby. Jesus obliges. Now, we know that pigs are considered unclean under Jewish dietary laws, along with many other animals. But I was thinking about this symbolism, and I couldn't help but recall childhood visits to pig farms in the Midwest. Other kinds of farms have their own smells, farms where there are cows and horses, goats and chickens. They all smell of manure, certainly, but I've never been bothered by a normal farm. Pig farms, on the other hand, stink. They smell terrible. The more pigs there are, the stronger and more oppressive the stench. It's a stink that sticks to you, that gags you if you aren't used to it. Remembering that stench, I think it's no wonder pigs were considered unclean. But however bad they smelled, the pigs in this story are interesting, in that they cannot abide being possessed by demons. Unwilling to live with the demons inside them, they commit a mass suicide, which, although he was harmful to himself, was not something the possessed man had done. Since we don't hear more about them, I assume this means the demons did, in fact, end up going back in the abyss. But the man is healed. Suddenly he's in his right mind. He cleans himself up, puts on some clothes, and he's ready to sit at Jesus' feet and be a disciple. The townspeople, however, are not happy. Sure, they had one crazy guy they had to watch out for, but they also had about 2,000 pigs who, however stinky, paid the bills. Now, a member of their community had been healed, but their economy had been deeply affected, and they were scared. They tell Jesus to leave, just get out. It's not that they don't think he performed a miracle, it's that that miracle was too expensive for their comfort. They hadn't planned on paying so much for one man to be healed. They would have rather kept chaining him up when he got troublesome. Jesus obliges and goes on his way, but when the man asks to come along, Jesus refuses him. He tells him to stay home and tell people what he had done. He creates a Gentile apostle from a formerly demon-possessed man. This couldn't have been easy, though, for the man to go back to his town, to continue to live with the people that had seen him acting crazy, even violent. Sure, they might see he had changed, but how could they forget who and what he had been? Would he ever be able to have a normal life there with people who knew his past? It wasn't an easy thing that Jesus asked him to do. What does it mean for all of us? I spent a lot of the time this week thinking about demons, about the most obvious kinds we deal with, mental illness, addiction, but also the more insidious and common kind, the demons that live in our head telling us lies. We all have them. They might tell you you're ugly, stupid, unlovable. They may repeat all the bad things anyone has ever said about you until you believe them to be true. Or they may tell you that money is more important than love, that power is more important than peace. Our world is full of demons, and they are legion. Much of my writing these days is done with a sleeping child next to me. Thankfully, she doesn't know much about demons yet. Her biggest worries have to do with when she can have another cookie and the frustration of being told she can't watch a video when she wants to. But unfortunately, she will know about demons someday. She will know about the demons that are so powerful they make it impossible for some parents to keep their babies. She will know the demons of friends and family who are broken and hurting. And she will almost certainly have some of her own demons, although I will do what I can to thwart them. This society breeds demons in little girls, telling them how they should look, dress, and act, and making them think they are less than if they don't fit in. This society also breeds demons in little boys, discouraging emotion, encouraging violence. These demons hurt us all, but can be invisible. And I think that makes them worse in a way than the more obvious demon of schizophrenia, for example. When we can easily identify someone as crazy, they become other, and we can point the finger at them instead of examining ourselves. Unfortunately, in our society, we are too much like the townspeople of today's story, less interested in healing other people's demons than making money, unwilling to pay the price, whether economically or emotionally, to heal those who are hurting. When Jesus, a healer, came to them, he proved his abilities, but they still implored him to leave, even if he could help them spiritually. He was bad for business, and that's what their priority was. Demons are actually pretty good business. The ones that tell us we aren't good enough, cause us to spend lots of money, to look different, to change our bodies, to acquire more and better stuff. The demons of addiction keep drug lords and liquor stores alike in business, and the demons of violence and fear make for a multi-billion-dollar gun industry. The message in our story is that Jesus can heal these demons. Jesus can bring us peace, acceptance, freedom, but maybe we can't see past the prophets to let him. Jesus has always been bad for business. That's one of the reasons he was killed. The Roman Empire profited by subjugating the people they colonized, and Jesus was spreading the message that God of love was more powerful. Jesus' disciples left their work and families to become homeless travelers who shared their resources and preached against hoarding. And Jesus' teachings about money and greed are so threatening that most people, including most Christians, choose to ignore them. So what do demons and pigs have to do with us today in the US, in Maine, in this room? More than you might think. If we let Jesus heal us of our demons, will we be brave enough to stick around and tell people about it? Brave enough to admit what those demons were, no matter the cost? Brave enough to be witnesses to the healing power of God in a society more interested in greed? This is what we are called to do, to allow ourselves to be healed and then to bear witness. Healing our demons won't likely result in any pigs being harmed, but our egos might have to take a jump off the cliff. Amen.
Make sure that actually.
No, it's good.